North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum was on former President Trump's short list. For vice president, joining us now is Governor Burgum, and it's great to have you on. Welcome, Governor.
Hey, good morning. Great to be with you.
You know what we do here on CNBC, and we're really fascinated by the economic or populist the way that the party may be moving with this choice. It wasn't you, Governor, I know you got close, but J.D. Vance does signify perhaps a move to more populist economic policies. We've been talking about this most of the morning because those are the things we focus on. Can you address that? And we're talking about things like maybe higher corporate taxes, maybe a stronger antitrust enforcement division. You know, the vice presidential nominee has complimented Lina Khan. Tariffs. It looks like a different type of conservatism, and maybe it shouldn't even be called conservatism if it were to go that way.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, last night at the convention, such a historic moment, electrifying when President Trump comes into the arena, not even 48 hours after a assassination attempt, that just a millimeter difference, we'd be talking about a very different topic right now. So, gratitude that the president is alive. And in terms of economic policy, I think that in a second Trump-Vance term, you're going to see the same kind of economic policies that you saw in the first one, where President Trump was his tax cuts for Americans and on the corporate side brought, as you guys know, billions and billions and billions of dollars back home from corporations that couldn't repatriate those dollars back to the U.S. because of high U.S. corporate tax rate. That's good for everybody. And of course, Joe Biden, if he's elected, there's some economic policies to worry about, because he's bragging and saying that I'm going to repeal and let lapse those Trump tax cuts, and that would be horrible for our economy. And so, in the end of the day, this is about an election in November, and President Trump, his economic policies are just stand out so much better than Joe Biden. I think there's no question. In the inflation, high interest rates, those economic issues are going to be what's on the table in November when people go to vote.
Governor, are you familiar with the gentleman we just had on, Orrin Cass, the executive director of American Compass? Because he is they are close with J.D. Vance, with Senator Vance. And he just basically said that lower corporate taxes may not be the way to go anymore, and that to keep taxes low for individuals, that some type of bargain or deal could be done to raise corporate taxes. I mean, the whole platform of American Compass, which apparently J.D. Vance is one of the leading thought leaders for this group, it's very different than classic conservatism. Do you think that by President Trump picking this particular person, does it mean that he is amenable to moving in those directions, do you think?
Well, I can't explain all the thinking behind that, but I would just say the economic policy is going to be set by President Trump and this administration. It wasn't set by Vice President Pence in the last administration. I think you have to look to President Trump. And I think on corporate taxes, if you raise corporate taxes, that's a cost to a corporation. They have to pass it on in higher prices. So consumers end up paying for it either way. And so it's just simple economics.
Governor, our debt and deficits, as you know, have exploded. They exploded under former President Trump when he was the president. They continue to explode under President Biden. Do you have any hope that under former President Trump, if he becomes the president again, that changes? And how do you think that changes if, in fact, you think that the taxes either stay where they are or go lower?
Well, I think when you listen to President Trump, when he's been out campaigning this last spring, is he's got a real understanding. Yes, we've got a national debt, we've got a deficit, but the one thing under Joe Biden, which Americans need to understand, we talk about our liabilities all the time, that debt. We never talk about the balance sheet on the other side, which is our assets. And of course, Theodore Roosevelt himself put away 240 million acres of land in this country, specifically for the, quote, benefit and use of the American people. And now under Joe Biden, with all the rules and mandates, I mean, we've got the largest landowner in the United States is the people of the United States, because the federal government, through the people, own that land. The largest mineral owner is the people of the United States. But, Joe Biden, they don't want to cut a tree. They don't want to develop rare earth minerals. They don't want to mine uranium. We're buying uranium from Russia, and they definitely are blocking the development of oil and gas resources, which we do cleaner, safer, and better here than anywhere else in the world. So by increasing U.S. production on federal lands, we actually help the global environment. And of course, today, with innovation, not regulation, like we're doing in North Dakota, we can access federal lands with horizontal drilling. We don't even have to set foot on federal land. And then all we're doing is sending checks to the federal government, which would help pay down that deficit. But of course, we're even being blocked right now by this rulemaking of the Biden administration from literally sending money to the federal government without them doing anything. Apparently, they don't want that. So it's when President Trump talks about unleashing American energy, that's accessing our balance sheet. That's going to help us reduce the deficit.
Hey, Governor, one thing, though. Teddy Roosevelt set aside all those lands with the explicit idea of conservation. I mean, I understand being able to drill underneath from a horizontal place coming in, but if you're talking about strip mining and taking some of that land and using it to get at the rare earth minerals underneath, that is not what Teddy Roosevelt had in mind when he created those parks.
Well, I have to disagree with you because it was very clear at the time, you know, when he talked about the strength of our nation, he understood those assets should be there. And he's quoted over and over saying that conservation is as much about development as it is preservation. Biden administration, they're about preservation. Don't set a foot. Don't walk on it. Don't have anything go on it. Teddy Roosevelt was about sustainability. And when we do it in the United States with the rules that we have, and the reclamation capability that we have versus China tearing up Indonesia, tearing up Central African Republic, tearing up their own country, destroying their environment. You know, if we think that we're just helping the environment by getting all of our EV batteries from China, that's just completely false.
Hey, Governor,
it's not. It is also vandalism wantonly to destroy or permit the destruction of what is beautiful in nature, whether it be a cliff, a forest, or a species of mammal or bird. I mean, those are words of his, too. I understand your point, but I don't want to take that away from what he created and set up.
Well, I think we understand that well. We're building a presidential library for Theodore Roosevelt in North Dakota at the entrance to the Theodore Roosevelt National Park, the only park named after an individual. So we understand his legacy. But when you talk about 240 million acres, or even like now with the Biden administration, what they're doing to block energy development in Alaska, which was the U.S. Strategic Navy Petroleum Reserve. I mean, part of how we won World War II was a battle over resources. You know, our submarines sinking every oil tanker going to Japan at the end of the war, they were out of resources. And then now up there, you know, the Biden administration was attacked by the far left for the Willow Project. And that was the equivalent of about 3 square miles. It's like barely a couple golf courses out of an area the size of Indiana. I do believe that we can make those trade-offs and say if we can take an infinitesimal small amount of federal land to access resources.
But Governor, just to be clear of what Teddy Roosevelt had in mind, in the Grand Canyon, Arizona has a natural wonder which is in kind, absolutely unparalleled through the rest of the words. These are his words. I want to ask you to keep the great wonder of nature as it is now. I hope you will not have a building of any kind, not a summer cottage, a hotel, or anything else to mar the wonderful grandeur, the sublimity, the great loneliness and beauty of the canyon. Leave it as it is. You cannot improve on it. The ages have been at work on it, and man can only mar it. I mean, say what you want about it, but don't use Teddy Roosevelt as the reason for doing it.